Sir, you were clocked at 82 and a 65. I need your license and registration.
I run this road. You don't tell me what to do, boy.
Sir, this stop is being recorded. That language of refusal will have consequences.
You hear me? I own this highway.
It started as a regular Tuesday morning in November 2021. Officer Marcus Thorne had been patrolling Interstate 10 outside of Phoenix for about 3 hours. The road stretched through the vast Sonoran Desert with towering saguaro cacti on both sides and distant dust-covered mountains shimmering in the heat. Marcus was a 10-year veteran of the police force. He was known for being calm professional and always going by the book. His record was spotless, not a single sustained complaint in a decade. Around 11:30 in the morning, Marcus noticed a white cargo van speeding past his patrol car. His radar gun clocked the vehicle at 82 miles per hour in a 65 zone. That was 17 miles over the limit. Dangerous, especially on a highway known for sudden dust storms and heavy truck traffic. Marcus turned on his lights and pulled out to follow the van. The van didn't stop right away. It kept going for almost half a mile before finally pulling over onto the wide desert shoulder. That was the first red flag. Marcus noted it mentally as he radioed in the stop to dispatch, giving them the license plate number and location. Standard procedure. He had done this hundreds of times before. Marcus grabbed his citation book and stepped out of his patrol car. The sun was intense that day, the kind of dry desert heat that hits you instantly. He walked toward the driver's side of the van, his body camera recording everything as always. As he approached the window, he could see the driver was an older man, maybe in his mid-60s. Sun-weathered skin, thinning gray hair, wearing a casual polo shirt. The window came down. Marcus leaned slightly to make eye contact, staying at a safe distance as he was trained to do. He started with the standard greeting explaining that the van had been clocked going 82 in a 65 zone. He asked for license and registration. That was when everything went sideways. The man in the van looked Marcus up and down. His expression changed from annoyed to something darker. His eyes narrowed. His mouth curled into something between a sneer and a smile. Then he started talking. And the words that came out made Marcus's jaw tighten. The driver said Marcus didn't deserve the badge he was wearing. He said he ran this road. Then he dropped the bomb. He was a judge. Judge Elias Vance, to be exact. A superior court judge with jurisdiction over Maricopa County. And according to him, that meant he decided who went where and who got arrested. He threatened to have Marcus spend a night in jail if Marcus kept joking with him. Marcus stayed calm. His voice didn't change. He repeated that he had stopped the van for speeding and that no one's position placed them above the law. He asked again for license and registration. Judge Vance laughed. Actually laughed. Then he said something that made Marcus's blood run cold, though his face showed nothing. The judge used the word boy. He said Marcus should be thanking him for even rolling down the window. He said people like Marcus shouldn't be out there controlling anything. Let that sink in for a moment. A sitting judge, a man whose entire job was to uphold the law and treat every person equally under that law, saying these things to a black police officer who was simply doing his job. Marcus took a breath. He informed the judge that everything was being recorded on his body camera. He warned him that continued threats would lead to consequences. He asked the judge to comply with the lawful request for identification. Judge Vance's response was to raise his middle finger directly at the camera. His left hand shot up the gesture unmistakable, his expensive gold retirement watch visible on his wrist. In his other hand, he held his smartphone. And he said he owned this highway. He said Marcus was nothing compared to him. The venom in his voice was crystal clear on the recording. Marcus had a decision to make. He could escalate this. He had grounds to ask the judge to step out of the vehicle, the refusal to provide identification. The threats, the hostile behavior, all of it justified further action. But Marcus also knew something else. He knew that sometimes the best thing to do is let people bury themselves with their own words and actions. And the body camera was catching everything. Quick question for you watching. Do you think the officer did the right thing by staying calm? Type yes if you agree. Marcus gave the judge one more chance. He explained that refusal to provide a driver's license during a traffic stop was a violation of state law. He kept his voice level and professional. Every word was measured. He was building a perfect case. And he didn't even have to try hard because the judge was doing all the work for him. Judge Vance finally threw his license at Marcus. Actually threw it. The plastic card tumbled through the hot air and landed on the dusty asphalt near Marcus's boots. Marcus bent down, picked it up, and walked back to his patrol car without another word. The body camera captured the judge yelling more insults at Marcus's back, including more references to Marcus's race and more threats about using his position to make Marcus's life difficult. Back in the patrol car, Marcus ran the license. Clean record, no warrants, just a speeding violation. He filled out the citation carefully, adding detailed notes about the driver's behavior, the refusal to initially comply, and the verbal threats. He took his time, let the judge sit and stew in the heat. When Marcus walked back to the van 12 minutes later, the judge had his phone out and appeared to be texting someone. Marcus handed over the citation and the license. He explained the court date and the fine amount. Judge Vance snatched the papers and said Marcus had no idea what kind of trouble he had just caused for himself. He said Marcus would regret this stop. Then he rolled up his window and drove away, kicking up dust and gravel as the van pulled back onto the interstate. Marcus watched him go. Then he got back in his patrol car and did something very important. He made a copy of the body camera footage right away and flagged the incident in his report. He noted every threat, every slur, every violation of professional conduct. He had a feeling this wasn't over, and he wanted to be prepared. He had no idea how right he was. 2 days later, Marcus was called into his sergeant's office. His stomach dropped. Had the judge actually followed through on his threats? Was Marcus about to be punished for doing his job correctly? His sergeant, a veteran cop named Sarah Jenkins, closed the door and told Marcus to sit down. Marcus prepared for the worst, but Sarah was smiling. She told Marcus that the body camera footage had been reviewed as part of standard procedure for any incident involving threats against an officer, and that footage had been forwarded up the chain. Way up the chain. It turned out that Judge Elias Vance had indeed tried to cause problems for Marcus. He had called the police chief directly. He had claimed Marcus was disrespectful, aggressive, and had racially profiled him. He demanded Marcus be fired. He used his position and connections to put pressure on the department. But there was one thing Judge Vance forgot about or didn't care about. The body camera doesn't lie. When the police chief received the complaint from Judge Vance, he requested the footage. He watched it. Then he watched it again. Then he called in the department's legal advisor and internal affairs and made them watch it. Every single person who saw that footage had the same reaction. Shock, anger, disbelief that a sitting judge would behave this way. The police chief made copies and sent the footage to the State Judicial Oversight Committee. He also sent it to the district attorney's office and the state attorney general. Within 48 hours, the story had reached the state Supreme Court. Judge Elias Vance was called into an emergency meeting with the chief judge of his district. He was asked about the traffic stop. He apparently stuck to his story claiming Marcus had been the problem, so they showed him the footage. They made him watch himself, made him watch his own middle finger flying up at the camera, made him listen to his own voice using slurs and making threats. The room went very quiet after that. Within a week, Judge Vance was placed under indefinite suspension. That meant he couldn't hear cases, couldn't enter his courtroom, couldn't exercise any judicial authority. The State Commission on Judicial Conduct opened a formal investigation. The video, in the meantime, had been leaked to the media. Have you ever seen someone's career end in real time? Keep watching because this gets even more intense. The local Phoenix News picked it up first, then the state news, then national outlets. By the end of the second week, the body camera footage had been viewed millions of times online. People were furious. Legal experts went on television to explain how a judge of all people should know better. Civil rights groups called for immediate removal from the bench. Other judges publicly condemned the behavior. But here's what made it even worse for Judge Vance. Reporters started digging into his past cases. They looked at every trial he had presided over, every ruling he had made, every sentence he had handed down. They were looking for patterns, and they found them. Over his 30-year career, Judge Vance had sentenced black defendants more harshly than white defendants for similar crimes. The statistics were striking. A white defendant convicted of drug possession in his court might get probation. A black defendant with the same charge and similar background would get jail time. A white defendant who violated parole might get a warning. A black defendant would be sent back to prison. Lawyers who had appeared before him started coming forward with stories. Some told about how Judge Vance would make subtle comments during trials that seemed to show bias. Others talked about how he treated black attorneys differently than white attorneys in his courtroom. One public defender told a story about how Judge Vance had questioned whether a young black lawyer was really qualified to practice law right there in open court. All of these stories had been just whispers before. Uncomfortable moments that people noted but didn't feel they could challenge. After all, he was a judge. He had power. Who would believe them over him? But now, with the body camera footage showing his true character, people felt safe coming forward. The state commission's investigation expanded. They started reviewing his old cases. They interviewed lawyers, defendants, court staff. They pulled transcripts and recordings. The picture that emerged was ugly. Judge Elias Vance had spent 3 decades on the bench carrying bias and prejudice, and it had affected real people's lives. People who went to jail longer than they should have. People who lost custody of their children. People who were denied fair bond hearings. 3 months after that traffic stop on Interstate 10, the commission released their findings. The report was lengthy. It detailed pattern after pattern of bias, inappropriate conduct, and violations of judicial ethics. The traffic stop with Officer Marcus Thorne was just the moment when the mask finally came off completely. The commission recommended immediate removal from the bench. The state Supreme Court agreed. Judge Elias Vance was stripped of his position. He lost his salary, his pension benefits, and his law license. He could never practice law again. Could never be a judge again. His career was over. Some people argued the punishment was too harsh. They said one bad moment shouldn't destroy 30 years of work. But others pointed out this wasn't one bad moment. This was a pattern spanning decades. Finally caught on camera. As for Marcus Thorne, he received a commendation for his professional conduct during the traffic stop. The police chief praised him publicly for staying calm under pressure and following proper procedure. Marcus gave one interview to a local news station. He kept it brief. He said he was just doing his job the way he was trained to do it. He said the body camera protected him, and he was grateful for that. He said he hoped this incident would remind people that no one is above the law. The body camera footage became a training video used in police academies and law schools. It showed the right way to handle a difficult situation. It showed why recording devices protect both officers and the public. And it showed what happens when someone believes their position puts them beyond accountability. The Arizona Desert Highway where it all happened looks the same as it did that November morning. The sun still beats down on the asphalt and the cacti stand tall. Families still pull over to take pictures of the landscape and officers still patrol it watching for speeders. But every cop who works that road now knows the story. They know about the traffic stop that ended a judge's career. They know about Officer Marcus Thorne, who stayed professional when someone tried to intimidate him with racial slurs and threats. And they know that the camera is always watching. Judge Elias Vance disappeared from public life after losing his position. No interviews, no statements beyond what his lawyer released. He lost his job, his reputation, and his legacy. All because he couldn't control his prejudice for the few minutes it took to handle a simple traffic stop. All because he thought his position made him untouchable. All because he forgot that in the age of body cameras, everything gets recorded. The van he was driving that day was a rental. It turned out he had been on his way back from a golf trip in Scottsdale, just a regular day off that turned into the worst day of his professional life. All over a speeding ticket, all because he saw a black officer and couldn't hide what he really thought. Do you think justice was served? Let us know in the comments. The footage still exists in police archives and on countless websites. You can still watch it if you search for it. You can see the middle finger go up. You can hear the threats and the slurs. You can watch a man destroy himself in real time, one awful word at a time. The traffic citation that started it all was for $280. That's what Judge Vance would have paid if he had just handed over his license, accepted the ticket, and driven away. Instead, his prejudice and his ego cost him everything. Marcus Thorne still works as a police officer. He still patrols highways. He still stops speeders and checks licenses and writes citations. He still treats every person with the same professional courtesy regardless of who they are or what they look like, because that's what the job requires. That's what the oath means. The story became a powerful example in discussions about racism accountability and the importance of recording devices in law enforcement. It showed up in news articles and think pieces. Legal scholars wrote about it in journals. It became a case study in what not to do, in how bias reveals itself, and why character matters, especially for those in positions of power. Some people who watched the footage said they weren't surprised. They said racism like that still exists everywhere, including in courtrooms. Others said they were shocked that someone could be that blatant about it. But everyone agreed on one thing. Judge Elias Vance had no one to blame but himself. The body camera that captured it all was just doing what it was designed to do. Record the truth, preserve evidence, protect the innocent, and expose the guilty. On that sunny November morning, it did its job perfectly, just like Officer Marcus Thorne did his. And that's the story of how a routine traffic stop exposed a racist judge and ended his career. How one man's hatred and arrogance, preserved in digital clarity, brought down 3 decades of a career built on a foundation of bias. How a middle finger raised in anger became the final gesture of a professional life. The most valuable lesson here isn't just about cameras watching us. It's that true character is revealed when people think they are untouchable. Integrity means doing the right thing even when faced with power that tries to intimidate you. And finally, we must remember that systemic bias often hides in plain sight, cloaked in robes of authority, until someone brave enough or something objective enough exposes it to the light. If this story opened your eyes to something important, please share it with others. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that matter.